Hi and welcome back. Today it's my 61st birthday, and so to celebrate I'll share an extra video with you. I'm going to indulge myself and paint an old-fashioned harbour scene with these beautiful old ships. When I first started painting about 4.5 years ago, I was hugely influenced by the incredible work of Edward Seago and Edward Weston, and particularly their ship and boat paintings. So today I'm going to have a bit of fun and using a limited palette paint this harbour scene at sunset. Thank you so much to all of you for all your support, which I really appreciate, and thank you so much to my wonderful supporters on Patreon. I wouldn't be able to run this channel without them. So I've started off just sketching out sort of rough outline of a couple of boats in the harbour in the midground, and then sort of a distant harbour shoreline. I'm using Milford 100% cotton watercolour paper. It's 11 inches by 15 inches or 28 centimetres by 38 centimetres. It's a lovely cotton paper. It's cold pressed, and it's made by St Cuthbert's Mill, who also make Saunders Waterford papers. They're two of my favourite types of paper that I nearly always paint with. I'm going to be using a limited palette, as I often do, and today it's going to be starting off with raw sienna, then a mixture of indigo and Payne's grey, which I'm putting in across the sky. I'm painting it wet in wet. I'm using a large Pro Art Ron Ranson Harkey brush, and as I say, painting the sky wet in wet. My board's at an angle of about 45 degrees, and as the paint runs down the page I can turn my board to control the flow of the wash and make any adjustments as it's flowing. And this helps me to get a really soft, beautiful wash and to retain the glow of yellow across the sky and the reflections of that yellow in the sea as well. So now I've laid my board flat so that my wash won't move much further, and using a 3/4 inch flat brush that's just clean and slightly damp, I'm running it through the sky to sort of lift out a few areas of cloud. Most of them will disappear because the wash is still very wet, but it's just going to give me hopefully some subtle variation, and I can add some more raw sienna into the sky if I need it, working quickly before the paper dries too much. I can work into it wet in wet until the sheen goes off the paper. When the sheen goes off the paper, then I need to really leave it alone. But so I'm being really quick, just putting in the basis for some reflections and ripples and shadows in the water in the foreground now. And now I'm going to use the corner of a plastic store card and etch some horizontal marks through the paint, just to make some slightly bolder, paler marks, just trying to build some light and texture. And then once I've got enough light in horizontal strokes, I'm going to break those up by just flicking some water with my fingers into the wash. Now, flicking that water in, it will create deliberate little blossoms and cauliflowers, little runbacks, but then I shall gently soften them out with a damp brush, and that should give me a bit more light again in my foreground. Most of that will be hidden when I paint over that to finish the painting off once it's dry, but for now I think that's given me the effect that I want, and I can leave it to dry completely. So here it is, it's dry, and I've raised it back up to 45 degrees, and the light has changed slightly in my studio, but these colours are fairly representative of how it looks at the moment. Now I'm going to block in the hulls of the sailing barges using my 3/4 inch flat brush, and I'm just going to roughly block in with a mixture of indigo, Payne's grey and a bit of burnt umber. So I'm going to just blocking the shape of the hulls. I don't mind if I leave a few little patches of unpainted or the underpainting showing through. I'll fill those in later if I don't need them. But sometimes when you miss out on little patches of paint, when you're painting something in silhouette like this, it can actually help to keep the painting looking fresh. So if I get any of those marks, I'll leave them. And if I don't want them later, as I say, I'll just fill them back in again. So it's just a matter of going over my pencil drawing and blocking it in, making sure that I get a few little sort of uneven shaped marks across the top edge to sort of indicate things on the deck. And keeping it nice and straight, nice and fine for the masts. This time just very, very much using just the tips of the flat brush to get some nice fine lines. And so I'll swap between the flat brush and my small calligraphy brush to add detail to the masts, just sort of a bit of rolled up sail, maybe indications of some of the fixings that join the rigging to the masts and the boats themselves. If I get any darker marks, I can gently tap back with a tissue, and that removes a bit of the paint, makes the marks a little bit paler here and there. And so I can just work on these boats and sort of trying to give the impression of one moored up behind the other. So there's two boats there. When you're putting in rigging, it's best to be reasonably confident if you can. Maybe to sort of do a few practice strokes with the brush a few centimetres from the paper so that your arm is used to the kind of stroke that you need to make. And obviously not having too much paint on your brush so that your brush strokes are either hit and miss dry brush strokes or very fine. With details on boats, masts and rigging, it's better to be sort of a bit approximate and very rough and loose if you can. And that's the same when you put in the reflections. I need to reflect those hulls, but then I also need to reflect the masts. So I need to bring those down fairly carefully to make sure that they are exactly underneath where the masts are. And then I can start working on trying to get some movement, a little bit of chop, but not too much, into the water, so that I can sort of have a fairly convincing reflection. Now that the sailing barges are in, I want to try to link them into the water a bit more. By that I mean I have to have some harmony in the darks, so I need to bring some darker paint across in horizontal brush strokes towards the foreground, but leaving some of the underpainting showing through. Then once that's done, then I can continue to bring harmony to the painting by linking the horizon line to the ship as well. And what I'm doing is just putting in some little something and nothing shapes to indicate maybe buildings, trees, boats moored up on the far shore, and some masts and things, and just link that along the horizon as far as the sailing barges in the midground, and then I can do the same across on the right. And all of this helps to bring harmony in composition, but also it balances out the tones of the painting a lot more. So really all I have to do now to finish off the painting is to put in the distant harbour in that little section on the right, but also to continue to work across the water and the boat, making little adjustments here and there, because as you change one part of the painting, you notice that it needs balancing up or slightly changing in another area of it. And that's the way that loose painting sort of evolves. And it's a really enjoyable process. I would recommend anybody to have a go at loose painting, and it's much harder than it looks, but it's certainly worthwhile practicing because it's a really enjoyable way to paint once you've sort of practiced and got a few of the methods and techniques under your belt. I think I'm sort of overworking the water a little bit, but I don't mind. I'm having a lot of fun. This is some more raw sienna just to pull through in horizontal lines with the flat brush to bring a bit more light into the water. And I think I'm done. So I'll remove the tape and put it against a slightly cleaner board so that we can have a look at it and see how it looks. And yeah, I'm quite pleased. I managed to keep the light across the horizon and the reflected light in the water, which makes those silhouetted sailing barges stand out really nicely. I just need to clean up that edge a bit and then dab that out, lift off some of the paint so it's a slightly sort of paler, flatter mark there. Yep, and I think that's all right. I'm just going to make a slight adjustment to the boat, the front one, just block in some slightly darker paint so that this boat is more in shadow than the one behind it. You can just see the one behind it where the back of the hull, the keel, is slightly paler. Well, I hope you found that helpful, and thanks so much for indulging me on my birthday. I really enjoyed painting this scene, even though I can see loads of little faults and things that I wish I'd done a bit better. I thoroughly enjoyed painting it. So thank you so much for your support, and please leave us a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because it really helps with my reach. And thank you so much to my wonderful Patreon group who support this channel. And I'll see you again soon. And happy painting. Bye.